I am. Hopefully. Let's try it.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, Meltdown and Spectre kill PC performance. Kinda. GPU prices go insane. This is no drill. Welcome to the Full Nerd. I can't even get that right. Welcome to the Full Nerd, episode 39, recorded on January 19, 2018. I'm Gordon Ma-Ung, along with Brad Charkis.
Hello, Internet.
Melissa Riofrio.
Hey.
And controlling the vertical and horizontal is Adam Patrick Murray. But wait a minute.
I still have my fidget spinner.
Oh, man.
Adam usually sidetracks us. I'm going to ask Adam before we go anywhere.
What's going on?
How great are those modular power supplies, Adam?
I got to say, I love modular power supplies. It's so easy to switch out cables and only use the ones that you need. I actually need to send one back, and I don't need to send all the cables back. I just need to send the box back.
Well, Adam was going to say, this is great. All I have to do is, because the EVGA power supply in our streaming machine took a dump.
Yes.
I'll just take this Corsair modular power supply, unplug it, and use the cables that are already plugged in. I say
it makes sense to me.
No.
It makes sense to me, right?
That way. No.
Oh, man. Well,
so what is the point?
You're crushing his dreams, Gordon.
I know.
It should, yes.
Don't worry.
but it
I heeded your advice before I killed anything even further. I heeded your advice, grabbed a non-modular power supply with all the tentacles and plugged it in. And obviously it's working. We're here, hopefully, on the internet somewhere.
Yes, but so what is the point of the modularity if you can't just like swap it out and just like?
Well, that's a good question then. Yeah, how come? I mean, the connections are the same. I'm for those who don't know, I'm a PC noob still.
They're the same on the motherboard and the video card
yeah.
and all that, but they are not the same on the power supply side.
Why is that? Why? Why?
They're all wired because everybody wants to invent their own wheel, and they're all different. What I really like though is like in the old days. Wait, Brad, go ahead. He's going to tell us how much.
Because in this case, exactly, EVGA doesn't want you using Corsair power supplies.
What?
They want you to buy another EVGA power supply.
Oh, right, that's true.
Yeah, but they don't state that up front. So me, as a noob, might not know that and swap it out and just blow up my system. So I mean, like at least maybe put something on the box like, hey, just so you know.
Yeah.
Like it. Yeah.
This is only your first lesson today in amoral capitalism, Adam.
Well, and what I like though is that it used to be if you had a power supply in the old days, it would actually everything was color coded, right?
When we hand crank things? How old are you?
Yeah,
talking?
just about. So you used to get like red, yellow, white, and they all had different voltage rails, and you could figure like, oh, I shouldn't plug this in because look, if I plug this, yellow wire into the red wire, that's too much voltage. Now though, it's like, oh, it's got to be cool. So every wire is the exact same color. They're all black or they're all white or whatever it is. It's just like, so you can't tell. You don't even know if you've plugged in the wrong thing to the wrong thing. So thank you,
My
modular
PC looks
power
real
supplies.
nice, though.
Yeah, it does look nice, especially when the smoke comes off of it. All right, but you know what? Before I took us off track myself.
You did. Good job. Congratulations. You're learning.
Speaking of smoke coming out of things.
Bum, bum, bum.
Meltdown and Spectre. Brad, of course, has been on top of this since the beginning.
He's the man on the street.
You want to tell us what it is for people who don't know what exactly?
Yeah, so basically, Meltdown and Spectre are a pair of processor flaws with the way that processors handle speculative execution, which is basically when you give a processor a task, it's already working ahead while it's figuring out, each step of the process. And then whatever it needs, it keeps. Whatever it doesn't need, it throws away. And the way that works opened it up to these Meltdown and Spectre exploits, which basically can give attackers access to all of the protected, secretive information in your operating system kernel, which is very, very bad.
And although, I got to wonder, everybody calls these flaws. Are they really flaws? Or, isn't there really... These were performance...
It's a design. It's a design.
Performance shortcuts.
They designed the processors with these...
exploits.
Not the exploits, but they wanted the chips to run faster. So they said, oh, let's do this speculative execution, get some stuff in ahead of time. And that's what created the opening.
I think the exact difference is going to mean the difference between success and failure in all these class action lawsuits that are happening.
So this
personally, I think it's more of an exploit. Like, this is how chips are designed, and someone now, 20 years later, figured out how to take advantage of that design.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It would be
it's
like
not necessarily a flaw.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know how to really
It's taking
describe it.
advantage of a design.
So these affect AMD, ARM, and Intel?
Every processor you can talk about is affected by Spectre. The Meltdown patch, the Meltdown flaw, which was the big nasty one, mostly affected only Intel processors. It didn't affect AMD processors. It affected a handful of ARM core processors for like the Mac, iPads and stuff like that. But the big emergency Windows patch that Microsoft pushed out earlier this month, I think on the 3rd, patched up Meltdown. So install that patch pronto. Don't mess around. That one shouldn't make you lose performance. So install that ASAP if you have a Intel system.
But there are no exploits using this yet, right?
There are none that have been observed in the wild, and attackers would need to be able to run code on your PC. So the immediate danger isn't necessarily there, but the fact that these exploits are now public mean that there are very likely attacks coming down the pipeline. And you really want to have your antivirus going, because if malware gets put on your PC that lets attackers run code on your PC, that's when, you could run into issues with this.
Okay, so now for Meltdown, though. So Spectre...
It's complicated.
So which is the one that requires a firmware update, though? Is it
Okay, so it's
or
Spectre.
Meltdown?
There are two different versions of the Spectre flaw. Spectre basically lets attackers see hidden private information that shouldn't be allowed to see, but only in the program you're using. And Spectre has two different variants. The first one can be patched with software updates and operating system updates. We've already seen those come from Microsoft. We've seen browsers start to put that out. Web browsers are particularly vulnerable to Spectre because JavaScript, if it runs as code, it could theoretically be attacked by Spectre. So they pushed out software updates real quick for that. NVIDIA's graphics drivers obviously hook deep into the kernel, so they pushed out a fix for Spectre for that real quick. But the second type of Spectre variant needs a CPU microcode firmware update. So that's the one that causes performance issues.
Well, and I think we should say before we go on, part of the distress and frustration for most people is that there's so many things you have to do to protect yourself. And they're coming from different companies, rolling out in different schedules. And so, knowing what to do and when is really hard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to patch everything, but and
isn't there like a website or something that has like a checker to see if you're patched up? We got somebody on Facebook asking about that.
Yep. There's we have an article about it on PC World, or you can just Google it. Gibson Research, run by a guy named Steve Gibson, who's been a developer and security researcher for decades at this point. Very well known.
Yes, very well known.
Has a program called Inspector, which is I think pretty clever actually. It's INSPECTRE, so it's spelled like the Spectre flaw. And you just download it. It's like 122 kilobytes. It's super small. It's you run it, you don't even have to install it, and it'll just quickly scan your system and tell you right away, are you protected against Meltdown? Yes or no. Are you protected Inspector? Yes or no. How's your performance? It's a great tool.
We got another question on Facebook from Noel. Are AMD chips having any of these issues?
AMD is not affected by Meltdown. It is affected by Spectre, AMD chips. Like I said, the first Spectre variant is going to be fixed by operating system and software updates, so keep installing those no matter what you have. The second kind requires a firmware update. AMD is releasing those, but it says that because of the way the CPU architecture is designed, it has a near zero risk to fall vulnerable to that. So they're being listed as optional updates, whereas if you have an Intel system, you should download and install those updates as soon as they're ready.
And of course, that actually brings me to the most controversial part of this for me, is that who exactly will get these firmware updates from Intel? It's not looking like everyone, right? At this point, Z170 and up, basically Skylake and up.
Yeah.
That's what it's looking like from the motherboard vendors, at least. It sounds like Intel's making them available for all the way back to Sandy Bridge, because they just put out a post yesterday saying these firmware patches actually cause reboot issues in operating systems going back to Sandy Bridge. So Intel's making those available. The question is whether or not the HPs and Gigabytes and Lenovo's of the world will actually release firmware updates for 5, 6, 7-year-old systems.
Right. And I can tell you, I asked a couple board vendors, actually a few, but I've only heard from 3 of them, and they've said at this point, it looks like everybody's holding a line at Skylake. So if you have a Z170 and up, you are patched up against Meltdown with the firmware update. If you're Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge, Haswell, which is the one that really hurts, I think, because it's not that old.
No.
Get in the life raft and hang on, and we will cut the rope as soon as you get on. So,
well, tons of people still use Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge to this day because of this day, they're still really good processors, the Core i7 versions especially. So to me, I consider it like almost neglectful of the industry to not release patches for hardware that's still being used by thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world.
Yeah, I think people are used to that with Android, though, right? So and they have like, you know what I like with phones? Well, I guess I'll fix it by buying the new phone, right? So that with PCs, though, it's they want their fix. They want to be protected. Even
the
back
phone
to the
situation is even messier, actually, because phones are affected by Meltdown, or Spectre at least.
Oh.
And Google's doing a good job releasing them, but for it to trickle down to the Lenovo's and HTCs of the world, and then trickle down to your carrier pushing out a firmware update. I mean, don't hold your hopes out for old phones.
But you can fix it by buying a new one, Brad, I thought. Is that what you can do?
Need to get in that yearly Apple plan.
Yeah. So I think that, again, like I was just like, I did a survey at our house, and it's like, I got like I have a Sandy Bridge, 2 Sandy Bridge boxes, 1 Sandy Bridge E, and then I have a Haswell, and then we have a Westmere machine, older 6-core Westmere that's still in use.
Damn.
And basically, we're all screwed. That's like 4 machines. What am I going to do, right? Do I have to build 4 machines to replace them to be, so-called safe? Well,
the good news is that 2 of the 3 flaws, because they're called Meltdown and Spectre, but there's really 2 Spectre flaws. 2 of the 3 flaws are being mitigated by operating system and software updates. So a lot of the holes are getting patched even on these older systems. So, and it remains to be seen how if effective malware can come out that affects the systems that need this microcode update.
Right. And I guess the browsers are kind of being patched against it, so it'll mitigate some of it.
Well, and you know what you can do, Gordon? You just buy a Mac. They never get viruses.
That's
or
right.
So you're good,
I heard that Macs are completely immune from this.
Yeah.
Is that true, Brad? Because you've been following.
Not even
this.
a little bit.
No,
no, they're totally immune to it.
Huh? Interesting. That's odd. I thought malware doesn't get over there.
Speaking of the browsers, though, I just want to give a plug to an old school Firefox extension called NoScript, which blocks JavaScript by default. It can make websites a little bit finicky because it blocks JavaScript, but blocking JavaScript is like the single best thing you can do to protect bad websites from using these against your PC. So if you use Firefox, consider downloading that, giving it a try.
I kind of wonder, isn't it time? I mean, I'm not a web person. I'm not a Web 2.0 person, but like to me, seems like we need to take JavaScript and put it in that same boat with Flash and just push it overboard.
But look
right?
look how long it took to get rid of Flash.
It's still here, but
yeah, but I mean, but slowly over time, we're not going to support this, we're not going to support that. But yeah, it's not even gone yet, and everyone knows that it's dangerous.
Right. But I mean, can't there be like some kind of movement? Can't somebody start an online petition to dump JavaScript overboard?
Larry Ellison.
One of the cool things about modern web is that you can do so many desktop-like things, and that requires heftier code. So
yeah,
if we push JavaScript over the edge, we're pushing all that fun stuff with it.
We need to go back to text-based browsing. That's
HTML.
Right?
Oh yeah, BBSs.
What else I want to ask about Meltdown and Spectre? Okay,
we're going to talk about the performance
and
stuff?
performance. Yeah, so I can talk about the performance thing. Although I saw something interesting today. I think PC Mag did some tests, which pretty much match what I've seen.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, never heard of it either. But yeah, PC Mag which I like to mention because everybody says, "Hey, you're Gordon with PC Mag." It's like, no.
Everybody
it's close.
thinks that.
I use PC, whatever. You don't care, but and also I guess TechSpot has been doing a lot of testing. For the most part, it's about a 5% performance hit I've tested now on Skylake 8th gen, which is Kaby Lake R, as well as Broadwell. For the most part, it looks like for most CPU intensive classic, 3D rendering, it's about a 3 to 5% hit for the most part, on WinRAR, 7-zip, Cinebench, bunch of other stuff. So it's not a huge killer of performance. The only place that it really does suck, which I found with the Surface Book when I did the testing last Friday, is the 4K random 4K file access just goes through the floor. And I've now tested that on basically a SATA SSD in the Broadwell XPS 13, which, hey, Dell's pushed out a fix for it, so we know what it's like on Broadwell. Not as bad as people thought it would be. As far as the CPU side, but the 4K performance sucks. And on the Kaby Lake R with a Toshiba NVMe drive, same thing. It's just 50% drop in performance once you enable all the fixes.
So is that something people are going to encounter frequently, or in certain scenarios?
What kind of scenarios does that affect? Is what's going to be my question, which is the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really tough. I was researching so how much of how important is 4K file access? Gamers Nexus did a test. It must have been 2 years ago. It feels like, and they found that a lot of game. I mean, probably I think they were saying most games are 32K, and there's a lot of 4K file access. So, and one example I use is just simply a WebExpert 2015, which Intel was saying, this takes a 10% performance hit. I've actually found it's more like 5% performance hit. This is all abstracted, right? So you're in a browser, you're running a bunch of scripts, and then so it's hitting the SSD. So it's abstracted. I'm still trying to get Sysmark 2014 SE to run, which people who don't know, it is like going to Mordor and throwing the ring in.
It's a commitment.
It is a commitment. It's a lifestyle, actually. It's a Sysmark. I love the benchmark. It's incredible, but they have a system responsiveness test. So what Sysmark does is it goes in and actually measures. Well, I know there's a lot of politics with the whole Babco Sysmark thing, but one of the things that Sysmark does is it goes in and it measures when you click go do something on your computer, it tells you how long for the computer to come back before it responded. So it's really, they have a responsive scenario where all it does is measure the responsiveness to you, and Intel's own numbers say 20% hit on that.
Wow.
That's a killer.
And that's gonna, I really think, so the actual upshot of this is sometimes for the most part, you're never going to notice if you're lucky enough to have an actual patch for Spectre, and it is the firmware fix that kills performance, not the other OS patches. If you're lucky enough to get the full security patch, you'll probably see 5%, if that, in most things. Unless you hit a lot of 4K file access, then you might even notice that. You might notice it. A lot of times you won't, and then a lot of times you're like, why is this so slow now? So it's just kind of, who knows, random suckness.
Digital Foundry, Eurogamer, tested a bunch of games with the Spectre patch installed, the firmware and the operating system code, and found that in the majority of games, it didn't make much of a difference, but it made a sizable, 20 frames per second difference in Witcher 3.
Right.
Wow.
And that's presumably, me thinking it through, is because it's a big open world that's streaming in data from the hard drive as it plays. So open world games might see a bit more performance loss than you would expect.
Wow.
Right.
So we're going to have to see. I haven't had time to test myself. And another thing to keep in mind with all this is we're all talking about Windows 10 performance numbers. Microsoft has come out and said that if you're running Windows 7 or 8, you'll see more of a performance hit from these microcode updates. And if you're running Windows 7 or 8 on a processor that's Broadwell, Haswell, or before, it says there will be a sizable performance update that you will notice.
Wow.
Oh, so it is only on Windows 8? Because in Windows 10, I'm seeing basically the same delta. If I run Windows 7 or Windows 8 on Broadwell, I should bigger.
Yeah, it should be. That's the worst case scenarios that Microsoft says, because it doesn't have the hardware changes to make it more flexible than newer Intel processors do. And Windows 7 and 8, they explained, wasn't optimized as well, so it does a lot of more things that hit the kernel, and that slows it down. So
I'll have to look for a Windows 7 ISO for that then. But
Jeez.
Windows 10, from what I'm finding out on a Broadwell laptop, is not a huge, pretty similar to.
Yeah, but then I think about all the people who are still running Windows 7 or Windows 8 on older PCs. And I kind of feel like this could be like the whole Apple iPhone battery thing where the masses rise up and say, why are you doing this to us?
Yeah, but
Except unfortunately,
news is-
they can't go back to one company. They're all wanging on Apple, but how can you wang on all the companies that are involved in this?
yeah.
Sorry,
The good
Brad.
news
go
is they'll probably never get a BIOS update for their motherboard.
So you won't actually notice the performance.
hit.
Hit.
Ow.
Keep your antivirus running, folks.
Yeah, actually, one other thing on as far as the 4K, 4K. I mean, really, I've found in Sysoft Sandra on KB Lake R as well as Broadwell. Same thing, Crystal Dismark, anything that is 4K, and I guess probably that game. But I want to point out that PC Per Alvin. God, did I just munch his name over there? They have a storage dude over at PC Per. It's just like he is just in touch.
Alan Malventano.
Yeah, that's Alan, right? So Alan, good. I just saw him at CES too. I'd hate to screw up his name. He did some testing and actually found out like there's some things where actually he saw the patch was increasing performance.
What?
So there's a lot of weirdness to this and how things react. So I don't think people should assume like it'll be an immediate X% hit on everything. But
So is that going to show up in the benchmarking circles? Hey, let's get a little more performance by.
yeah, I don't
I'm just
know.
kidding.
I mean, it just feels like it is going to go on for years, right? This is going to go on forever. The fallout from this will go on forever.
Yeah, I mean, there are two interesting aspects for me. One of them is that, in the constant war of performance between Intel and AMD chips, Intel chips just took potentially a big hit.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to see their CAGR going up, and Intel's may actually flatline, and that's never good. But then the other thing I was thinking is like, yeah, I mean, how long is this going to go on? Because these flaws are taking advantage of, a very fundamental aspect of the design of these chips. And so in order for them to like eliminate it, they would have to eliminate that feature, except that feature has been helping their performance increase over all these years. So it's not something they were necessarily prepared to get rid of. So the other night I went to a dark corner of a parking lot to meet up with my personal Intel Deep Throat contact. And I asked that person, so Intel's known about this for 6 months. What were they going to do? And I mean, you're talking about chip architecture. You can't just like fix a couple wires and it'll all be hunky dory. And so they said they weren't directly involved in all the stuff that was going on, but they're still, close. They said, there was probably the holy crap, what if we just have to change everything solution, which they would never want to do. And then, for them to actually put something in their architecture that would eliminate the flaw, those chip design lead times are 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, right.
Now, of course, it varies by chip manufacturer, and Intel's been so loosey-goosey about their architecture and codename words now. We can't figure out like which architecture they're on anymore. TikTok is just out the window. But yeah, it could be 2 or 3 years. And so all these chips that we're really excited about right now, like KB Lake G specifically, Hades Canyon, they're in the thick of it. There's nothing we can do about it.
Right. It's going to take years.
So
for
will
this
be
shit to go.
Ryzen Plus or whatever is coming out in a couple of months. I would be shocked if that's not vulnerable to Spectre flaws.
Right. It's going to have to be because there's just no way you don't.
Yeah. So it's like a fact of life going forward, is that this is something you'll have to protect against.
Well, I got to say, I think the scarier thing is people like see this like, oh, this is like a one-time incident. This is not a one-time incident. Basically, people are like, hey, and this is all theoretical. These are the smartest people like Google and all these other security firms looking at how to exploit CPU architecture.
Yeah.
Now everybody's like, hey. It's just I like the way I look at it. It's like a kryptonite lock. These are the best bike locks in the world until somebody figured out you could shove a big pen into the lock and open it up, right? And then like, hey, the most secure locks, they're secure until somebody figured out if you wiggle or if you bump it hard enough in a certain way, you can hit the resonance and unlock a lock. So people are going to be looking at how to break other parts of these CPUs for the foreseeable future, and we could continue to see performance take a nerf, or just we could be facing what we face with Android, where you're just screwed. The only way to fix this is to buy a new one 2 years from now, which of course is great for hardware companies, but it just may suck. I don't know, because there are rumors, and I don't know if we really want to talk about these rumors. There's rumors that somebody says, hey, we got 2 more hardware exploits that we're going to show off once the fixes are out. You see this? And of course, because the first one was called Spectre, I think one of them's named Skyfall, the other one's
James Bond, yes.
The other one's Solus, I think. So, they're named after...
You Only Live Twice, Thunderball.
Yeah, Solus was like, no, that movie was horrible. I don't know if they were thinking about that one.
At least name it after the good Bond movies. So,
Yeah.
I will say that the person they have leading the effort at Intel, Steve Smith, really, really smart. And he worked on their last big Intel bug, which was, eons ago, FDiv or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and they're actually, I saw that comment. Somebody I think it was Mark, was saying, like, it's interesting that, Steve Smith, who worked on the FDiv bug, which was a massive recall, also was the person they rolled out for this one.
Yes, but I think it's because he's been there before. But also my Intel Deep Throat contact says, just says Steve Smith is the bomb. So.
Oh, yeah.
So Pacowell on YouTube says, Gordon, what doesn't get these... have these problems is consoles, so you could just run your Edge browser on your console.
I don't
and you're good.
necessarily agree with that. I actually mean to ask somebody about that. I doubt they'll answer me back, but I would not be surprised if you use the browser in your console that it could be taken advantage of by Spectre.
Well, look, I don't know what you're talking about, Brad, because consoles are on a completely different architecture, on like some cell processor or something like that, I think.
The most advanced architecture in the world.
They're immune. Yes. Consoles are immune from it because they're not, wait a minute. I think they're running on a commodity PC hardware, I think. So, yeah. But, I understand when Microsoft and Sony ordered the CPUs for the consoles, they said, we want it without this exploit.
Right.
So I said, okay, we got that.
Makes sense.
It
makes sense.
We're fine.
How many people actually use that, man? I'm sure they're going to push out updates as far as their normal, monthly console updates just quietly.
Yeah, they're going to
out
have to patch it.
But I would even, rather than patch the microcode and crap like that, I would just, pull the browser. Who actually uses the browser in their console?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. my personal website, I'm not going to give it out here. I'm not trying to shamelessly plug AdamPatrickMurray.com. Anyway, every once in a while I'll check the stats, and there's like at least 3 people a month that are like browsing on a Nintendo Wii. And I'm like, really? You're looking at my site through the Nintendo Wii browser?
That's just because
it boggles my mind.
They probably just went there by accident. Because they're
maybe,
trying to use the controller to like ADM. Oh, what's this? AdamPatrickMurray.com? I was trying to go to Arthur Daniels Midland. Proud sponsor of NPR Radio. ADM.
Yeah. So it's funny.
But yeah, even though you're getting reboots, like Intel has said, this will make some systems reboot more frequently. They're working with people to push out and do things next week. If you're a consumer, you should still install these patches for safety. I mean, it's frustrating. It's a headache. You might lose performance, but losing performance is better than someone releasing some malware and suddenly having all the sensitive information on your computer.
Thanks, Brad. I have Haswell.
So, yeah. Well, and Brad and some of our other editors have Meltdown Inspector articles on PCWorld.com that go through all the information, also how you can keep your PC safe, what's going on with phones and tablets. So check it out. PCWorld.com.
Nice.
See, look, I'm site promoting.
Yeah, and I think it'll work on a Wii. You could actually have PCWorld.com on your Wii.
Oh, I don't know. How do you dismiss that pop-up?
Back when the Xbox 360 first got its browser, it was the first console, I believe, with a browser. So I went to, I was freelancing back then. I opened up I was Computer Shopper articles at the time, took a picture of it and sent it to my mom and said, I'm on TV now.
Nice.
Oh, so cute.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
anecdotes.
Well, but before we move on to the next topic, not a quick break for a sponsor, but I forgot to mention this up front that all the people who are tuning in on YouTube and Facebook, don't forget there is an audio version of this, so you can listen to it on the go at any time. Search The Full Nerd in iTunes or
Leave a review on
Google
iTunes.
Play. Yeah, leave a review. Tell us what you think. Even if you think Gordon is a horrible person and consoles are the best, please leave that review because it helps us to get more traction. So
I feel bad that I have nothing to shamelessly self-promote myself now. Feel left
Really?
out.
You must.
Yeah.
I see a
Follow me on Twitter.
X370 motherboard back there. Talk about that. I see a Silverstone
Show
case. What is that down there?
No.
It looks like a
Hey,
X99. All right. Yeah, he's got everything that supports updates. I guess.
he's got all the GPUs that are worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. Brad,
especially
his whereabouts. It's an undisclosed
Brad is in
location.
an undisclosed location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brad has, in fact, I think probably about $95,000 worth of GPUs. I bet.
Especially now, right?
You can't tell, but there's actually a safe door right there, just to get in there.
I do have a shotgun and a rifle in case anybody gets any ideas.
And that does get us. That gets us to topic 2,
Yeah. Boom. Bum bum bum.
which is the wonderful good news of being able to buy GPUs at normal prices. Right? That's just.
yeah.
We should. You know what? We made a mistake. We should have had something in here that was happy news, because this is like normal network NBC news makes you want to jump out a window kind
Yeah.
of news. Like,
Yeah.
can we have something good news? But then,
Come back at 9 and we'll talk about how snakes come out of your toilet. and
Oh.
eat the rats, which is a good thing.
my favorite is like poisonous coffee. News at 10. I'm drinking coffee right now. Should I stop drinking my coffee? But yes,
All
so
right.
Brad's going to catch us up on just what the hell is going on here.
Yeah. What
man.
the hell is right?
So yeah, graphics card prices incredibly suck right now. They've sucked a large part of last year for about the $200 to $450 graphics cards, but now every graphics card, like basically every graphics card, don't even try to buy them. Like the RX 580 and the GTX 1060 are going for $500, twice or more of their value. The GTX 1080 Ti last year was largely, exempt from all the mining craze and shortages because it was so expensive. It's hard to recoup costs. But now so many coins are worth so much money that even the GTX 1080 Ti is going for I researched this 2 days ago, and the cheapest one I saw was $1,300 instead of the $700 that it should be.
Right.
So
I thought
it's an awful time to
The
build a
list
gaming
price was
laptop.
like $650, right?
700.
Was it? Oh, okay. I thought it was $650.
Well, it's an awful time if you're not a cryptocurrency miner. If you're a
Yeah.
cryptocurrency miner, the fur is flying. You're getting all the GPUs
Well,
you want.
they're not having a good time either. It's going down in value, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Bitcoin did have a down yesterday, but it's been up
Yeah.
and down
okay.
anyway for 6 months now.
So to me, the crazy thing is, I'm looking at your story, Brad, on PCWorld.com.
Oh,
Brought to you
perfect.
by PCWorld.com.
What was that site, Gordon?
Yeah.
PCWorld.com on Nintendo Wii users. This is .com. They an XFX RX Vega 64, $1,800.
Whew.
Right.
Oof.
That is more
Ooh.
than a 1080 Ti at $1,300. What the hell?
I mean,
You want to hear something funny? One of the best purchases, if you don't want to buy entry level hardware, just to wait this out, which is kind of my recommendation if you need to get a graphics card right now, the best value you can get right now is actually the new Titan XP.
Yeah.
Those swanky new Star Wars
Yeah.
Titan XP graphics cards are still selling for $1,138. You can pick them up on the NVIDIA website.
man.
Yeah,
that's
that's-
cheaper than the GTX 1080 Ti.
Why are they
Why?
immune from this?
I'm not sure, but that's just how crazy things are these days.
Well, I thought you were going to say that one of the best ways to get a GPU now is to get a built desktop. And when you get it, just rip the GPU out and put it in the computer you actually want to use it in, and then sell the rest of it. Which if the system has integrated graphics, the chump who buys it may not know the difference.
Or the new Xbox One X has an RX in it. You know, you could just rip that out, right?
Yeah,
That's actually what I would do
Would
if
not.
my graphics card died today, and I wasn't sitting on $95,000 worth of graphics cards or whatever. I'm not actually sitting on $95,000 worth of graphics.
Yeah, it's more like $250,000 for graphics cards.
You know,
Damn it, Gordon.
Brad Chocos lives in Florida, by the way. Lives in Florida.
so somebody did real quick. Somebody did mention that they imagine you have an attack dog. Man, I can't find the joke, but for some reason, Dave on YouTube says, "Why do I imagine Brad has a Yorkie protecting his house?"
He actually has
No.
a porg protecting his house.
Oh, okay.
For those who don't know, Brad does all our graphics card reviews. So
Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Oh,
we
they
need to
better
keep
know.
those Safe. Yeah.
But yeah, I did an article, suggesting a couple things that you could do if your graphics card dies right now. And that's one of them is to just, as Melissa said, buy a pre-built, because you can actually get some at really good prices, because between the prices of RAM and graphics cards, for the first time in a long time, it's actually significantly cheaper to buy a pre-built machine than it is to build your own.
And that hurts.
And Yeah.
It hurts the DIYs. We're so proud of being able to, shop and bargain and mail in our rebates and get the best and then brag about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no bragging.
Well, Sai
And
says
you can't pick what's in there. So
Yeah.
so. Sai is saying maybe Ryzen APUs will be the budget kings for gaming. What do you think about that?
I plan on asking AMD to send me one of those, not for a CPU review, but to compare against like the RX 550, because I'm very interested in that proposition myself.
Are 1050 RX 550 class cards still reasonably priced? Inflated?
Yes, they're inflated. If you need to buy a holdover card right now, I'd suggest a RX 560 or a GTX 1050. They run between 120 to 150 bucks. So they're not cheap. They're supposed to be $100, so the price are inflated, but that won't absolutely murder you. And those could get you console-ish quality graphics.
Does it make sense to go back a generation, like a 970 or 980 card? Or just-
Used cards are selling for more than they did when they were new. It's the same with the used economy too.
even on older GPUs,
Yeah.
last gen.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Sai on Twitter about my 970, and yeah, like I was looking up prices, and I'm like, oh wow, geez, it's still pretty damn high for a 970.
So I'm going to bring up a crazy theory, which I'm not going to mention any actual stores or brands necessarily, but I was talking with a system builder, and he said he was watching a store because he was getting cards for a build, and he was watching the parts. They landed at a store. He alerted the outfit that was supposed to get him the cards, and by 5 o'clock that day, I think there were 50 or 40 cards that went in there. By the end of the day, the cards had sold out, and then they were being listed by a reseller. So I kind of wonder if what's going on is the massive speculation right now. So like you have people that are just, if you see that a store has like, hey, they just put 25 1080s in stock, I'll buy every single one of them because by the way, I happen to have $1 million in cash. I can buy stuff, immediately turn these things around and sell them at 100% profit or 50% profit, whatever you can sell them for. So but the problem now is we have all these speculators just buying up every single thing. It's like a weird kind of feedback loop. Even if the mining is kind of subsiding and the prices are going down, and of course we're in that sort of like negative, everybody's down again on mining, but the hardware prices are still going up because of all the speculation, and you can't get to things, and people are speculating on these prices. And
It's also, even though, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's what I find very frustrating. I mentioned amoral capitalism before, and that's really what's happening here is that if someone's willing to pay that price, someone is willing to sell it to them. And maybe, Brad, maybe it was you who told me the other day that some of these cards aren't getting past the distributors, that the distributors are selling them before you even have a chance to buy it at a store. Let alone when it gets to the store, you're going to be bid out by all these other minor people.
Yep, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, so that's amoral capitalism at work, everybody.
And the thing with the cryptocurrencies is even though that Bitcoin is down right now, it's still like 6 or 7 times higher than it was last year, and all of the different coins are still profitable enough that it doesn't make sense not to mine yet.
Okay. And of course, I just want to add amoral capitalism, as I define it, is somebody else making it amorally off of me. When I'm doing it, that is not amoral capitalism. That's me making a nice.
That's just capitalism.
And I'm not anti-capitalism, but this is what happens when it kind of goes crazy.
Yes, and I wish. Yes, I'm just saying.
So on YouTube, Six says, guys, be smart. Wait for GDC 2018 at the end of March. And then with the official info of new NVIDIA cards, make an informative decision. But really, I mean, is the new architecture, is the new cards coming out? I mean, that wouldn't really change anything, right? I mean, it's not like the new architecture is going to help prevent mining.
If mining is truly doing it, but
yeah,
we assume it is.
I would 99% think it is. It depends. Mining has been around since the middle of last year, but GPUs like CPUs, like we were talking earlier, take a long time to develop. So I wouldn't necessarily expect there to be any mining protections in there. So, we're going to have to wait and see, because NVIDIA is prone to making new classes of graphics cards. Like, it has its data center class cards. It has its GeForce consumer class cards. I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually split out mining class cards if mining continues to be such a big deal. But I'm not sure that this year is enough time for them to do it. But I hope so, because this sucks.
Yeah, I'm going to actually bring up something pre-Vega launch. During the press briefings for Vega and Threadripper done at the same time, some members of the press were like, well, why not build a poison pill into the Vega cards, basically to nerf performance when mining? Like, you could put it just in the BIOS of the card, and the AMD people we were talking to say, this is something we have thought about, but you got to realize that there is so much money behind mining right now.
They're customers too. I mean, I don't even hate miners.
Well, but not even they are customers too. But AMD, AMD's
Miners
concern
are
is
customers too.
AMD's concern is like hurting their long-term, ability to be a brand with gamers. They're concerned about when mining is gone. Gamers have given up on the Radeon brand because you couldn't get them for 5 years. So, well, I know
they sang all that song and dance around the Vega launch, but all it really was is a way for them to sell the Vega packs for $100.
Well, you could get the no, but they said that the issue is like, look, we have looked at putting in poison pills into the firmware of the cards, but there's so much money in mining. They write custom firmware. They'll go in, they'll re-engineer, they'll write the BIOS back to the card. They'll change it to make it better for mining, and there's really nothing you can do unless it's an architectural change, and it ain't going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen.
They have special beta drivers that anybody can download that's better for mining. And actually, what was it called? The Vega Frontier Edition that eventually came out. They were saying for data Imagineers or whatever the hell they were talking about. People who do stuff with data, I guess. Sometimes in the months between now and then, they've actually rebranded the webpage for it. It's now for blockchain pioneers.
Really?
So they're actively selling it.
Well, and we all know if you want your company to make more money, just insert blockchain into the name, and you'll be golden.
Yeah, my new restaurant's called Blockchain. But are they? Yeah, I was looking at the price of the Frontier Edition. It's still lower than a Vega card, though, which is crazy to me.
Really?
Buy that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's just like, why in the world? I do kind of wonder if.
And it's that pretty blue too.
Well, so the price of the Titan XP on NVIDIA Special Edition Star Wars, so that's whatever, $50 per card going to the mouse.
Yep.
It's still lower than a 1080 Ti. I just do wonder if it's like, because NVIDIA doesn't care. They just want to have this card so people can buy this thing. And it just does make me wonder if it's all the speculation too. So it's all the speculators and all the miners.
Yeah.
I mean, a Titan XP should cost way more than a 1080 Ti, but it simply doesn't right now. It makes no sense to me. Like a Frontier Edition costs less, right? So.
Yeah, I don't understand that part of it either, but don't give them any ideas, Gordon.
just sell
actually, it's such a bad point for gaming right now that I'm the graphics editor, I'm the gaming editor. I am 100% PC gaming pro advocate. But right now in my article, and I'm saying this to everybody right now, if my graphics card broke, I would just buy an Xbox or a PlayStation. You can pick one of those up for $200 or $300. I mean, for $200, you can't even get a GTX 1050 Ti these days.
I got a cheaper
So-
solution,
You
Brad.
see what he's being driven to?
Yeah.
These are desperate times.
Yeah, but Gordon hasn't been driven there yet.
No,
That's-
what I'm saying is like if you like basically you have no access to PC gaming, what you can do is just watch a Twitch stream or YouTube video and then live through those replays. Because I just don't see it. And that's not, to me, that's not an alternative. But
Yeah, for a lot of people it won't be, but for a lot of people it really is, because at this point in their, life cycles, there's big backlogs. The Xbox One in particular is interesting, I think, for PC gamers because they have the Xbox Play Anywhere thing where the Microsoft first-party titles, if you buy it for the console, when you can buy a graphics card, you can play a lot of those games on your PC too. They now have backwards compatibility to a bunch of Xbox 360 and original Xbox games. So a lot of the benefits of the PC ecosystem are kind of, sort of, murkily over there for the Xbox One.
no.
If you're absolutely, just jonesing for a hit of gaming, you don't have a graphics card, $200 for an Xbox, you could do a lot worse.
I would not do it. Here's
Yeah, for those on the stream, you couldn't see Gordon's eyes just glaze over.
my
for a
advice.
second.
Look, my advice is like, well, hell, my 980 just smoked, blew it up because I got this modular power supply from Adam, but they had the wrong wires, blew up the box. Like one, it's doing me a favor because I'm running Sandy Burgee, and I'm never going to get a patch for it. Never going to get a patch, so that's gone. Don't have to worry about that. Now I need a new graphics card. I'll just go out and buy pre-built. You know what? It's just the only solution. They get the cards. They
Yep.
get them. They have no problems
They get
getting
'em.
the cards. They're not killing you in pricing. They're not marking them up. I would just go ahead and do that because you know what? If you're running on Haswell back right now, you ain't going to get that security patch. You might as well just move on up to a KB Lake or a Ryzen box. Just do it. To me, it makes sense. I'd even buy a laptop. I mean, hell,
if you have that money.
yeah.
I mean, buying a whole system is $700+.
Yes, that's true. It is, if you have the money. But, again, I'd say save up because at least it gets you to PC gaming, whereas this is 200
Or-
plus you're wasting on a console.
Or
And you got to buy the games.
Waste.
You don't have the games. You don't have the library. Your Steam library doesn't magically port over to a game console. So.
Or what if you sign up for the new NVIDIA stream or the GeForce Now streaming on your PC? You could even play it on your laptop there.
Very good.
That
That's
is a
good one.
clever idea, and it's free while it's in beta for everybody, assuming you get a sign-up.
You'll never get a
allowance
beta
or
key.
whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're getting a lot of people in the chat kind of, throwing out theories, saying, hey, this is the console manufacturers getting back at PC gamers.
Totally. Back
this
into
is
the front.
yeah, right.
Back into the front.
I mean, honestly, do we think that there's any sort of weird thing going on here, or is it just what we think is on the surface of, hey, mining is kind of driving it up?
Miners and speculators, just like Gordon said.
Yeah, I think that's it.
It's now grand conspiracy. AMD makes the parts for the consoles, AMD and NVIDIA. I mean, nobody's trying to get anybody there. They all just want to sell as much as they can.
Right.
Yeah, it's just that the DIYers are last in line, right? The PC vendors aren't freaking out yet because they're getting their allotment.
Right. As long as they get enough to sell, I think
Yeah.
we're okay. But the scary thing is the volatility. I mean, again, I have a friend, they just he upgraded his son to a 1066 gig for like normal price, like $280 in December. And now we're back to where that's a $600 video card. What the hell? To me, that's
Quick, sell it.
I know, right? You sell it and
Sell it. Get an
And
Xbox.
you
Problem
got
is-
a year of college tuition right there in that card.
Yeah, you couldn't sell the card. In the old days, you could sell a 1060 and buy a 1080, but now, no, you can't even get a 1080 for that. You're just there's nothing you can do. I'm just amazed. I can't.
It's tempting for gamers too, because I have a 1080, and I'm like, if I sell this, I can get a decent amount of money and throw the old, I forget, something Radeon back in my system. I could get by well enough at 1080p.
Right.
Well,
hard.
Sai's saying maybe NVIDIA's increasing GPU prices in order to get people to get on GeForce Now, right? Don't you see it? The chemtrails, man.
Conspiracy.
The chemtrails.
I tell you what I do expect. The last 2 generations of GeForce graphics cards have gone up compared to the previous ones,
Right.
and the new one is going to as well, I believe.
Yeah. Well, until there's competition, right? Until
Yeah.
NVIDIA has real competition from AMD,
Yeah.
the prices will go up.
Yeah.
That's expected. But
Speaking of prices going up, I got a Switch for Christmas, and holy crap, I forgot how expensive it is to be a console gamer. Like,
What?
it blows me away. Like, I have a Nintendo Switch, so I can play games sitting in a chair or whatever, right? And
Gordon's getting
it's
pissed.
incredibly expensive compared to PC gaming.
in what way,
Buying
Brad?
those games, buying those games.
Oh,
there are no
interesting.
sales.
There's sales. There's sales. There's definitely some sales going on. They just added that section in the store a couple months ago.
So you're saying if I went out and bought a pre-built, i7 Ryzen 1060 class box for $1,000 bucks. I mean a machine, so or an i7 or a Ryzen. Either one of those, right? So you can buy a Ryzen or an i7 box with a 1060, about $1,100, $1,200 from a pre-built, versus a console. Which it seems like the console will quickly add up once you've bought, every game is $50, right? So.
$60 for a lot of them.
$60.
And for the PlayStation and Xbox, you also have to pay for multiplayer, Xbox Live Gold or whatever it's called.
Right.
Yeah.
So the
there
cost,
are definitely disadvantages. There's a reason I don't play consoles in general, but it's still a good Band-Aid at this point.
And I'll tell you what, it hurt even worse. Like the PS Vita had that proprietary memory card, so yeah, like you like at least the Switch takes just generic micro SD, which you can get for pretty damn cheap. But oh man, that was a punch in the gut.
that's in Sony's DNA, frankly. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
going back to the 1980s, Sony would do like proprietary, like everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because people forget they're the Apple.
memory
of-
stick dude.
Oh,
They
they
were
were.
Apple before
They
Apple
did it because
ever
they
got
could.
anywhere, so.
Proprietary rootkits.
Yeah, everything's proprietary. So, we got any good news to talk about? Isn't it kind of happy thing? I'm going to move this chart because I keep looking at this chart and it looks like this.
Well, if you're a gamer and you have a graphics card in your system, I've been considering writing an article about this. Might as well talk about it on some happy note. You could maybe get in on that gravy train too. There's a program called NiceHash that basically it's no hassle setup. You put it on and you run your graphics card while you're not using your computer, and it'll mine coins for you and spit out bitcoins. Every now and again
Really?
on a set schedule. Yeah, it's pretty
NiceHash?
straightforward and easy.
So it's just
So,
easy.
Be
easy
part
to
of the
do.
problem. If there's going to be a problem, you might as well make your bank on it too.
Or I
Brad's.
love folding at home and SETI at home. It doesn't get you any money, but it helps contribute to the world.
Yeah, by the way, that's the entire plot of Quantum of Solace. Basically, the SETI, like, let's just use everybody's electricity that's like made by the power companies. I did a lot of SETI at home in the beginning, but I gave up because never found any aliens.
I know. I keep trying. But I suppose Kyer Howard on YouTube saying NiceHash got hacked. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, in December they got hacked and a bunch of their bitcoins are stolen. So if you're gonna use that, when you get bitcoins, move them out of your wallet into your own personal wallet, away from NiceHash, as soon as you get it, basically. Because with all of these, with Coinbase, with all these online things, if you're storing your bitcoin in someone else's service rather than on your own local hard drive or whatever, then there's a chance of it getting hacked because it's such a big juicy target right now.
Yeah. Seems like, isn't there like a bank you can put them in possibly? There's no federal protection for these FDIC?
No, man, that's just the man keeping you down.
I do wonder, not to get too far off the rails, but I do wonder what happens to when the man comes in and says, "Oh, that's great. We noticed you happen to have $3 million in Bitcoins. You owe us $1.6 million in federal taxes. Thank you. Please pay it up right now."
I would imagine when you try to withdraw it, there's probably some rules. I don't know the arcane details, all that stuff.
Yeah, right?
Something there.
It's all voodoo.
Tax regulations are generally designed to maximally screw you. So there's a good chance you just simply get screwed because when the man comes around, just like Johnny Cash says. No Johnny Cash fans?
Johnny Cash.
Yes, yeah. And also Vic M in YouTube really wants us to know that a Ryzen 1700 can yield you $2 per day for
Really?
mining. Yeah, supposedly it's good
How
for
much?
mining. He said $2. Well, he said $2 per day. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
US dollars.
Yeah, you can use CPUs for some of the stuff. I thought you said 200 at first.
Sorry,
Now it's
yeah,
gonna
that'd
be
be
all BS on that.
I wish I could mine coin by just doing my fidget spinner.
Okay, Adam, put down the
I'm
fidget
sorry.
spinner.
I'm sorry. I'm mining coin here, okay?
I'm spinning my computer chip.
I gotta say though, I love the 1700. It was my favorite Ryzen. Not again, but I gotta say, with these new AMD prices, I can't see not getting a 1700X, which is like $10 more. I would give up, the Wraith cooler for that 1700X. I think so, because you just get the clocks without doing any overclocking. So,
If you're planning on getting a third party cooler anyway, definitely.
right. If you do a Hyper 212, you're set, right? So I don't know.
Nice. Cool. Should we try to take some questions? Do we have some time?
Any questions? I was looking for some that were mailed to me, but
Yeah, so I'm
somebody's just
going
trying
to
to
switch
sell
it
me
over.
something from my
If you have a
Nigeria.
question right now, anything, especially console related, I know everybody loves to talk about consoles. Put them in the chat right now. I will go over it. We've got one in real quick from Chan. He says, "How much can you overclock a Ryzen?"
Not much.
No, that's not
You can
fair.
get them up to about 4 gigahertz.
Yeah.
So if you got a good one, 3.8 to 4 gigahertz, if you got decent cooling, is what you're gonna get.
Yeah, there's basically a magical wall from Star Trek that is at 4 gigahertz for the most part for almost everybody.
And why is that?
I think it's just simply the CPU design, process challenges, everything. just adds up.
Overregulation.
Overregulation. It just adds up. Yeah, it's just and that is something I think everybody expects we're going to see better in Zen Plus in a few months, because obviously Ryzen was just, hey, we got to get this thing launched, just launch it. So I imagine clocks will be something they improve on the next version.
Does AMD have
Something-
the same thing where if you burn up your chip, they'll give you one more?
No. That's Intel's overclocking
Yeah.
warranty service, which has always been a very, very gray area. People go like, because if you buy if I buy a 8700K, I can overclock it and I blow it up, I can get another one, right? They're well known. Technically, Intel's lawyers who must be just, I can't imagine what their Christmas party is like. They basically say you can sell this model that overclocks, but we do not condone overclocking. So you sell it for a certain purpose that you do not condone it for, so it's not technically covered. I've never heard anybody say, yeah, I blew up my 8700K. I did not have the insurance. They said, go pound sand. Usually, if you smoke it, Intel's going to be pretty cool because, hell, they're already making a ton of money off you anyway. Give you another one. If you try to do that 2 or 3 more times, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But first time, the first one's free, right? So
Something I do with my systems. I'm a person who tends to hold on to systems for 4 or 5 years in a row, upgrading different things. I actually don't overclock it when I first get it. Like, I built a new Ryzen rig this year and I didn't overclock it. I mean, I played around with the overclock to see how I could get it, but then I put it back to stock so that, a few years from now, if I feel it's starting to get a little bit slow, that's when I overclock it. It feels like I got a new PC, basically. Brad tricks.
yeah. When you don't
Nice.
care about it, that's when you need to overclock it. 'Cause
Along the same lines, Vignesh on YouTube says, what do you guys think of Ryzen 2000 series and the Ryzen Plus architecture?
2000's APUs, right? I forget the new APUs they just announced. We haven't
Well,
seen.
he
one.
might be asking about all of them coming out in April.
Oh, yeah. We don't know. I mean, honestly, I spent a whole day with AMD and we didn't learn too much exactly about the actual architecture or what the changes are. They're keeping the cards very close to the chest on this one. So I don't know. If you're talking about the APUs, though, it's basically Ryzen plus some Vega cores, so it should be pretty
I'm
cool.
very, very intrigued by that.
Yes.
For the reasons I talked about earlier. It's a Ryzen 3 and a Ryzen 5 chip, so they're fairly affordable chips. And they have some Vega cores attached to them. They're APUs. I'm intrigued by that, one, because I think we discussed in the last episode, existing Ryzen chips don't have integrated graphics. I think it's plugging
Yeah.
a big hole in their lineup. But 2, like I mentioned earlier today, is that going to be enough to get you, if you get 720p gaming, AAA gaming out of that? And in today's graphics market, that could make it, the Ryzen 5 version especially, potentially a very enticing option for someone whose graphics card does die in an era where RX 580s are selling for $600.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got the impression it's, obviously a lot of alcohol has washed away memories, but I do believe 720p medium, current titles, very doable on Ryzen and on the new APUs. They are also saying they overclock nicely. They're getting very decent overclocks. You're going to want to pair them with your fastest, main memory, because remember, there's no local, GDDR in them. You're using the memory in your PC. So go for high clock RAM, overclock it nicely. And yeah, definitely they're saying, yeah, you're getting very decent. It's definitely an esports capable APU.
Well, I tested, I think, the 8350K, maybe 6350K, some APU. Oh, well, it wasn't those parts, because those are FX parts. But I tested in one of their high-end A10 APUs 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I could, it was great for esports, or decent enough for esports. And I could even play things like Overwatch and Rainbow Six Siege if I turned it down to 720 low. So I'd imagine with these Vega cores, some interesting things might be possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think the way, the bars moved in 2 years, 720p medium, I thought, if I remember right, was, hey, it's very doable. So is that enough for me to forego getting a discrete card? Probably not. But if I ain't got the money for it, then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Nice. Got a good question from a friend of the show, Sai. Any PC cases you guys found interesting at CES?
Oh, gosh. Let's see. What was the best?
Project Snowblind,
Yeah.
I didn't see.
Or Project
was there,
Spark?
so-
Yeah, they had the Snowblind. They there were a lot of the PC builders actually had a lot of different cases on display. I think we talked about this last time, but that Main Gear one was just awesome. The F131 was just beautiful. I like the concepts for iBuyPower's Case Builder series, which they're going to try to make a modular every person's case. What else is cool? Main Gears is pretty. Origin's pretty nice, but very high end. As far as regular case enclosures, I didn't get around to. I got the Thermaltake for a few. They had They had like a 20th anniversary case that was pretty cool, but $900 case kind of thing. So yeah,
I didn't go to CES, but I saw coverage not on our site but other sites of a couple of different ones that are pretty interesting. One is the new Cooler Master that came out last year. I forget the exact number, but it was the rebirth of the old flagship, and it touted its wonderful airflow, and then it had a solid front panel and didn't have wonderful airflow. Well, they're coming out with a new version that has a mesh front, so that's exciting to me as someone who voted for the Master 5C as the best case of last year because it actually breathes.
Well,
and Leanne Lee has a case coming out that it partnered with the overclocker Devour to optimize airflow on that too. So
did
interesting.
Did he delid the case though? I just kind of
well,
No.
and so I covered the major PC vendors at CES, so Dell, HP, Lenovo, Acer, and Acer's Predator Orion 9000 has 5 fans, including 2 in the front with a mesh front like you were talking about, Brad, and then it had 2 fans on the top also covered with mesh, and then they had another fan in the back as well that was right next to the GPUs, plus their power supply had its own ventilation in the bottom, and it had this adorable little hood on it so that it wouldn't mar the look of the inside of the PC because it was all like neatly tied down with integrated liquid cooling and all that stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. And another built PC I loved was the Alienware Area 51. They made this little change where they have this little door in back that shuts over the graphics card, so you don't have to screw them in.
Mm-hmm. That looked nice.
It was just convenient. I mean, instead of having to sit there and screw it in, which we're all used to doing, that's fine. But if you can just shut the door. Shut the front door.
That sounds great.
So
we definitely should have an all case episode where we just get a few cases in, talk about AI. I gotta say it's interesting how it's like car designs. Everybody's got the same thing. It's like it was all about tempered glass. Like everybody had a tempered glass design. So I really was digging all the tempered glass because I've always been into the glass look. So
Well, and I get
I
into
like
the
it too.
details.
I like the mix.
Yeah, the mix is nice. But I get into the details. Like I hated getting metal cuts on the cases.
oh yeah,
And so when I was looking at the Predator Orion 9000, I was literally going all the way around checking all the metal just to make sure they'd shaved it all off. And I actually found some little corner where they hadn't done it. And I pointed it out to the product manager. He's like, okay, we're going to fix it.
you got a file out right there.
I should have. Because that means something to me, not getting the metal cuts.
Yeah, you know,
I have a Fantex N2 Evolve tempered glass, I think it is, my case underneath my desk right here. I meant to put it on my desk, but it turns out my HDMI cord is too short, so it has to sit underneath my desk in order to reach the monitor. And we were doing Full Nerd right before Christmas, so, last month, and I accidentally kicked it with my foot, and it gave me the widest, deepest gouge I've ever made on my
no.
toe. And I sat here bleeding for about the last 30
Oh
minutes.
my
I wanted
God.
these Full Nerds, and I now have a permanent scar on my toe from my case.
Oh,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm behind you with the whole metal, shade
Sharp
down.
Oh
edges.
my
Put a
God.
bezel on there.
That is hardcore, Brad. You sat there bleeding for a half an hour?
Yeah, for you guys.
Well, the cool thing would have been if you just kind of slowly just got wider and wider.
paler and paler.
The head went forward.
like I think yeah.
Then we call 911, wait for the medics to show up.
Now the Yorkie will save him.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got a good question from Holstein. Will platforms not receiving the Spectre BIOS update become obsolete, unusable, and unsellable on the second-hand market?
No.
Most people aren't going to know enough about it who are buying used computers. You could still sell it.
Yeah,
Being
people-
honest.
People still run Windows XP, for God's sake, which is got to be, oh my God, that's like running down the street with $1,000 bills hanging out your pocket. That's just not a good idea, and people do it every day. So no, someone will still buy them.
I was at the gas station the other day, and they had those monitors that run over the pumps. And the monitors were on the fritz, and they were running error codes and stuff. And of course, as soon as I see the error codes, I want to look. And those monitors are running Windows XP Home. This is a gas station. It's a business.
ay.
And those monitors are running Windows XP Home.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm always paranoid about gas stations because you gotta hope they don't hook up to the internet, but I'm super paranoid about skimmers, which are people don't know. Those
Absolutely.
are these people come by and they install a card reader that skims your data. So here's a trick: 1, look for the gas station seal, and 2, always go to the pump that's closest to the attendant and that faces the cameras because they're going to do the outer pumps.
Yeah.
They don't want to drive up and get their car on a camera. So,
You know
paranoid
what
tip
I
of the
think?
day.
This is also a complete tangent. You know what I wish Microsoft would do in the wake of all these Meltdown Inspector patches that I think would get them a lot of goodwill, and they want more people on Windows 10 anyway.
Yeah.
Because they've come out and said if you have the older operating systems, you're going to get a bigger performance hit just because of the way they are. If they come out and say, hey, guys, Windows 10 is better protected against this because of the way it's constructed, blah, 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 blah. The free upgrade is over, but for the next 2 months, if you want to upgrade your system to Windows 10, we'll let you do it for free for the next 2 months. I wish they would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, because at this point, if you're still on Windows 7 or 8, you're not going to pay to upgrade. I mean, it would be a goodwill gesture that I think would help a lot of people.
Yeah.
And help them drive the adoption numbers they're looking for.
Yeah. No, that's not a bad idea. I don't think it'll happen, but that'd be awesome of Microsoft to do if anybody's listening up in Redmond.
Question from Vic on YouTube. Will the Ryzen APU crossfire with their GPU based on the ecosystem?
At this point, no. So they're saying no. At the briefing, they did at least say we're not looking at that right now. It's possible. They have done that in the old days where you could crossfire, an APU with a GPU. But I don't, the whole sort of multi-card thing is also kind of dead to them. And I think they think that class of customer is not sophisticated enough to go out and say, hey, I'm going to buy a $75 graphics card and hook it up to my GPU and get more performance. It just doesn't happen.
All right. And then the last question from E Lopez 580: will there be more guests from companies on the show? It's been a while.
Yeah, actually, we're trying to get somebody from AMD as well as Creative Labs to talk about the awesome Super X5.
Yep.
Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Crystal Super Duper Califragilistic. Yeah. Yeah. We definitely want to have more guests on. We just, been too busy testing new hardware.
And it's a timing thing too, you know. We have a lot of companies in the Bay Area, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we can figure out a scheduling to get people up. So
yeah, if you have
yes,
suggestions,
we do want to. Yeah,
and if there's suggestions, people want to see guests who they want to hear from. We haven't had anybody from NVIDIA in a while. That'd be pretty cool. So
The guest episodes are actually my favorite episodes that we shot. So I'd love to have more guests on here.
yeah, I love hearing from industry folks because this is their lifeblood. This is what they do, so they know all about it.
Awesome.
So cool. No more questions?
No, we got somebody asking about builds because they want to see you get drunk and rant again. Don't worry, we got some news coming up. Stay tuned to our YouTube for some upcoming builds.
What's the point, though? This discussion just came up. No, what is the point? I just can't recommend. And I'm with Brad. Like, I'm the hardest of the PC, promoters, but there is just no point in building a computer today. There's just no point because you can't get the video card. You can't get a video card. There's no point.
This is
and
practically...
RAM is just as bad.
Yeah.
Well, I would say in a time where they can't, they really want to watch somebody build, so we should,
Live vicariously.
Yeah, right. So I'd say now more than ever they want us to build.
Oh yeah, and actually we will be doing a build, but you call up, it's like a 1-900. Oh yeah, we could build a 1080 Ti. We got two of them right here.
Hey baby.
Yeah.
And real quick, Sai says maybe for a guest, some case manufacturers.
Oh yeah, that'd be
fun.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to have also, I was trying to get I was talking to Corsair. It's like, I want to get somebody up to talk cases or power supplies. I know that's a little bit of a dry subject for some, but I think that is also a black mysterious box to a lot of people. So I'd love to talk power supplies to somebody.
Literally.
Obviously, I could learn a thing or two. So.
Yes. No, really, we should, we should just have like a whole bunch of guests lined up maybe.
Yeah.
See, the problem is Adam makes us try to commit to him, and then it's like, oh, now we have to commit. We have a schedule, so that makes it harder.
Yeah, right.
But yeah,
I'm the bad
definitely.
guy. All right, cool. Let's take us out, Gordon.
All right, where are my notes?
You can do this without notes.
Actually, this felt good. At least we ended up on talking about something that seems semi-happy rather than all this bad news.
Oh, and also John Phillips, our boss, says Intel. He'd love to have Intel on.
Yeah, I'd love to get Intel on too. I got to say though, it's tough because a lot of they're really bound by what they can say a lot of times. But I think definitely maybe talking about future stuff, and then also. The tough thing is if we have somebody on from Intel, all you're going to do, people going to heckle them about, Meltdown for 2 hours or something like that.
I want to get Raja on here. Raja, who knows Intel.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be cool, right? That would just be interesting.
That would be fun.
Then we could just ask questions like, so...
What's up?
What's up, man? What's up? All right. So check back in 2 weeks for your fix of PC talk on The Full Nerd. For audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes and leave reviews. Every time you do, the price of a video card goes down $1. I'm lying. That's not really true at all. Also, listen to us on Google Play or Stitcher. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@pcworld.com. Thefullnerd@pcworld.com. Thanks for coming. Brought to you by Arthur Daniels Midland. Not true at all. ADM.
Not true at all.
I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis.
Can't believe I told y'all to buy an Xbox.
Yeah, that's not right. And Melissa?
It's a conspiracy.
And will take us out because I've lost it already.
All right, everybody, keep mining.
No.